For decades, bodybuilding magazines, fitness influencers, and supplement companies have demonized carbohydrates, blaming them for fat gain, water retention, insulin spikes, and even weakness. Protein became the hero nutrient, carbs the villain. But long before low-carb and keto became cultural dogma, Mike Mentzer, the philosopher bodybuilder, stood before packed seminar audiences and told them something radically different. To him, carbohydrates were not the enemy. They were essential for energy, for health, for muscle preservation, and even for mental stability. He wasn't being contrarian for its own sake, he was being logical. Mentzer's entire worldview, from his heavy-duty training system to his dietary recommendations, flowed from one principle: the law of identity, that things are what they are. And in that spirit, he urged his listeners to look at nutrition rationally, not emotionally. The result was one of the most clear-eyed and scientifically defensible arguments ever made for why carbohydrates are indispensable in the bodybuilder's diet. The best way to eat to build mass. In his seminars, Mentzer often began with the question every aspiring bodybuilder asks:
what is the best way to eat then to build muscular mass, or to build a large muscular body? Simply eat a well-balanced diet. Actually, the most important aspect of eating a well-balanced diet is that it maintains health. This is something most of us learned in, 8th grade biology or 12th grade health, whatever, high school. And this is something we often forget. The first requisite in building a strong, healthy body is maintaining health. And the best way to maintain health is to eat a well-balanced diet.
He then quantified it with precision.
A well-balanced diet is one that is comprised of 60% carbohydrates, 25% protein, 15% fats. That means if your daily maintenance needed calories is 3,000. Out of those 3,000 calories, 60% should be carbohydrates, 25% protein, 15% fats. If in fact your daily maintenance needed calories is 3,000, then 60% or 1,800 should be carbohydrates. That's quite a bit of carbohydrates.
This, he reminded his listeners, was not a Mentzer theory, but the consensus of genuine nutrition science.
According to the American Senate Subcommittee on Nutrition and all of your reputable nutritional scientists and physical educators, a well-balanced diet is comprised of 60% carbohydrates, 25% protein, 15% fats. You will find those quacks and fattists who say eat the majority of your calories from protein. In most instances, those people also sell protein. They have a vested interest in distorting nutritional realities.
Decades before the diet and fitness industries made low-carb dogma a marketing empire, he called it for what it was, a distortion of reality for profit. Carbohydrates and high-intensity training. In the gym, Mentzer's case for carbohydrates became inarguable.
Carbohydrates is the most efficient fuel, good question, for high-intensity training, or again, any kind of anaerobic training. Anaerobic activity, which is what high-intensity or weight training activity is, demands sugar as fuel. The worst way to get cut up is to lift weights, because weight training does not burn fat as fuel. It's a simple medical fact. It's not even open to debate. Weight training burns sugar. And if you're not getting sugar from fruits or vegetables, cereals or grains, where's your muscle going to get sugar to continue contracting? From your own muscle. There's an amino acid contained in your muscle tissue called alanine, which will be broken down, sent to your liver, and turned into glucose. That's why carbohydrates are called protein sparing. It spares your protein from being used for energy.
Mentzer then quantified it.
1 pound of muscle contains 600 calories. 1 pound of fat contains 3,500 calories. To get the energy yield from muscle that you would from fat, you'd have to burn 6 pounds of muscle. So it's ridiculous to go on low carbohydrate diets to get cut up, because you will inevitably lose some muscle. You have to.
Low carbs force the body to cannibalize muscle for glucose. The very tissue the bodybuilder seeks to preserve becomes fuel. Carbs and the Brain. Mentzer's defense of carbohydrates wasn't abstract. It was physiological, even psychological.
Carbohydrates, next to water, are by far the most important nutritional element anybody, not just a bodybuilder, but anybody can consume. The most important reason being our nervous systems, our brain, our spinal cords, our peripheral nerves derive 99.9% of their nutrition from the one thing we've been taught is the worst thing we can eat, sugar, glucose. It's the most important thing you can eat. Pure, simple sugar. Your brain derives almost 100% of your nutrition for your brain comes from sugar. Is sugar.
What sounded to some like a provocation was in fact a reflection of biological fact. 4 decades later, neuroscience has confirmed precisely what Mentzer claimed. In the 2019 review, Brain Glucose Metabolism, Integration of Energetics with Function, neuroscientist Gerald A. Dienel summarized the state of the science. Glucose is the long-established obligatory fuel for brain that fulfills many critical functions, including ATP production, oxidative stress management, and synthesis of neurotransmitters, neuromodulators, and structural components. That single sentence, glucose is the obligatory fuel for the brain, vindicates Mentzer's claim. The human brain, though only 2% of body weight, consumes roughly 20% of total glucose energy at rest, and within the brain, specialized support cells called astrocytes, a type of glial cell, store glycogen, the brain's emergency sugar reserve, and release it when neurons need fuel. This system, known as the astrocyte neuron lactate shuttle, allows the brain to maintain activity during stress, low blood sugar, or bursts of thought. In essence, the brain stores sugar precisely because it depends on it. If glucose were poison, as some modern diet ideologues claim, it would be odd that the most metabolically advanced organ in the human body is literally built to store and use it. Evolution doesn't preserve what harms us. It preserves what sustains us.
How many in here have been on a low-carbohydrate diet before? Sorry about that. What's one of the first things you notice in a low-carb diet? Weak. Tense. Edgy. What else? Can't seem to think right. Short-term memory is impaired. Concentration is impaired. You start dreaming about chocolate instead of sex. First requisite. You can't have sex without carbohydrates. Think about it that way. What are these signals? These signals are your nervous system sending out for the thing that it needs the most, sugar. If you've ever been around a bodybuilder who's been on a low-carb diet for 4 to 6 weeks, you'll see that it also impairs personality. Your personality is a function of your nervous system. And if your nervous system is not getting the fuel it needs from carbohydrates, your personality is going to become deranged, and I mean deranged.
Modern research supports Mentzer's observation that decreased glucose availability impairs thinking, concentration, and memory. For instance, Yi et al. In 2024 found that individuals who experienced hypoglycemic episodes had a 47% higher likelihood of cognitive dysfunction. Likewise, a 2018 review by Abadi et al. Shows that tasks requiring attention, rapid response, and complex reasoning are particularly vulnerable during low glucose states. In neuroimaging studies, Peters et al. In 2020 show that administering glucose enhances brain activation in memory and attention circuits, even when behavioral tests are marginal. Mentzer wasn't just defending carbohydrates, he was defending clear thinking itself. Carbohydrates are not the enemy of reason or of muscle, they are the fuel of both. Calories, not carbohydrates, determine fat loss. Many people remain fixated on the idea that carbohydrates are the primary culprits in fat gain. Yet, as a competitive bodybuilder who routinely dieted down to single-digit body fat levels, Mentzer understood fat loss firsthand, and he never saw carbohydrates as an obstacle to getting lean.
The best way to get cut up is to go on a reduced calorie diet, reduce your daily calorie intake to below your maintenance need of calories. Again, if you need 3,000 calories a day to maintain yourself, you need 3,000 calories a day, not to gain weight, not to lose weight, but maintain yourself. And all of a sudden you reduce your daily calorie intake to 2,000 calories, then you're going to be 1,000 calories deficient. Where's that 1,000 calories going to come from? Your body fat. That's what body fat is. It's stored energy. Now these 2,000 calories can be 2,000 calories of pure table sugar, and you'll still get ripped. That's right. Mike Mentzer is saying you can get ripped eating pure table sugar. I'm not advocating it. Please don't think that. I've had people run out and say, wow, Mike Mentzer said go eat pure table sugar. Theoretically, you can get ripped. You can become highly defined eating nothing but ice cream. As long as what? Your daily total calorie intake is below your maintenance needed calories. Then you have to resort to body fat for energy. I'm not advocating that because, again, it's not a well-balanced diet. Eat a well-balanced diet, but eat a reduced calorie diet, that's all. It doesn't have to be all protein.
His argument was empirical. Fat loss is governed by energy balance, not by macronutrient dogma. Modern research fully supports this. The Endocrine Review's 2017 scientific statement on obesity pathogenesis concluded, growing evidence suggests that for practical purposes, the answer to the question, is a calorie, is yes. Calories derived from different dietary constituents do not differ significantly in their inherent capacity to promote weight gain or loss, so long as total calorie intake is held constant. A New England Journal of Medicine meta-analysis performed in 2009 found reduced calorie diets result in clinically meaningful weight loss, regardless of which macronutrients they emphasize. A 2018 Journal of American Medical Association study echoed there was no significant difference in weight change between either a healthy low-fat diet versus a healthy low-carbohydrate diet. Neither genotype pattern nor baseline insulin secretion was associated with the dietary effects on weight loss. Mentzer's observation,
it's not even debatable. You can do it. I've done it.
Remains one of the most experimentally validated statements in modern nutrition. Even Professor Mark Hobbs' now famous Twinkie diet demonstrated the same principle. Eating mostly snack cakes but maintaining a calorie deficit, Hobbs lost 27 pounds and improved his cholesterol. The food quality was poor, but the energy arithmetic worked. To Mentzer, it could never have been otherwise. The glycogen-water connection. Beyond fat loss, Mentzer explained another crucial carbohydrate function, hydration and muscle volume.
Every gram of stored sugar in a muscle contains 3 grams of stored water. Now, during a period of about 3 days on a low-carbohydrate diet, as you're continuing your weight training and burning up that stored sugar for energy, what happens to that sugar once it's used up for energy? It leaves the muscle. But once the stored sugar leaves the muscle, what happens to the water that was stored with it? The water leaves also. The first couple days on a low-carb diet, you'll notice you go to the bathroom a lot. That water is not coming from fat. Fat is only 15% water. Muscle is 70% water. You're actually losing your muscle mass on a low-carbohydrate diet.
He even pondered a historical theory.
And I have a theory that that's the reason bodybuilders have gotten so heavily into steroids. Because of this diuretic effect of a low-carbohydrate diet. If you look back about 10 years ago, the advent of the low-carbohydrate diet in the bodybuilding scene, it very closely parallels the emergence of steroids on the bodybuilding scene. And I think what bodybuilders were doing unwittingly was using steroids, which retain water, to offset the diuretic effect of the low-carbohydrate diet. The bodybuilder was doing his curls and not getting a pump because he was getting no carbohydrates. And he found out when he took 2 more Dianabol pills, retained that much more water, and he could still get a pump. It's just a theory, but it's a plausible one.
Whatever one thinks of the theory, the biochemistry is sound. Glycogen binds water. Remove carbs, you lose both. Simple and complex carbohydrates, defining terms. When asked to distinguish simple and complex carbohydrates, Mentzer responded not as a diet guru, but as a philosopher concerned with conceptual precision.
There is no such thing. There is no such thing. A carbohydrate is a carbohydrate. There are simple and complex foods, or refined and unrefined. By the time it gets into your bloodstream, the carbohydrate has to be in the form of glucose. Makes no difference at all. Whether it's from a candy bar, an apple, a baked potato, it has to be in the form of glucose for your brain to use it.
Critics who take this literally miss the point. Mentzer was not denying nutritional differences among foods. He was clarifying a category mistake.
What is refined or unrefined is the food it's contained in. The carbohydrate is the same. Food is either refined or unrefined. But I know what you're talking about. It's not good to eat too many refined or simple sugars because they go into your bloodstream too fast and cause all kinds of problems. Get your carbohydrates from as many natural sources as possible. But if you have a hankering to eat an occasional candy bar, again, don't think the world's going to stop revolving. It's not going to hurt you. Try to get the reason nutritional experts advocate that you get your carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables. It's because those things also lend themselves to a well-balanced diet. They contain vitamins, minerals, and other things that are contained in a well-balanced diet.
For Mentzer, the issue wasn't moral, it was contextual. The molecule glucose doesn't change its nature depending on the food it came from. What changes are the accompanying nutrients and digestion speed. He refused to let sloppy language obscure that distinction. Science catches up to Mentzer. Many modern critics argue that carbohydrates aren't essential, since the body can convert protein into glucose via gluconeogenesis, and that the only thing carbs do is spike insulin, which leads to body fat deposition. Mentzer knew this argument and rejected it as absurd for athletes who want to preserve muscle.
So you've got to have carbohydrates to build muscle, and you've got to have carbohydrates to maintain muscle. So if you're looking to build mass, you've got to have a large amount of carbohydrates in your diet. Not an untold number. Again, 60% of your daily maintenance needed calories.
Modern science validates this too. Controlled trials disprove the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity, the idea that insulin spikes uniquely cause fat storage. Kevin D. Hall's 2017 review in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition concluded, quote, "Important aspects of the carbohydrate insulin model have been experimentally falsified. The model is too simplistic," close quote. It may surprise some to learn that scientific research has also indicated that some people produce more insulin in response to proteins and fats than carbs, which suggests that insulin production is more individualized than first believed. A recently published study by Reitman et al. Concluded, quote, "Dietary proteins have an insulinotropic effect and thus promote insulin secretion, which indeed leads to enhanced glucose clearance from the blood. In the long term, however, a high dietary protein intake is associated with an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Moreover, branched-chain amino acids, a prominent group of amino acids, were recently identified to be associated with diabetes," close quote. Even whey protein, for example, has been shown to be more insulinogenic than white bread, and beef has been shown to stimulate just as much of an insulin release as brown rice. And the insulin response to protein is not more moderate and prolonged. Indeed, protein has been shown to cause a rapid spike in insulin followed by a rapid descent, just like carbohydrates. There is even evidence that a high-protein meal can cause more immediate fat storage than a high-carbohydrate meal, owing to the fact that dietary fat, that most protein sources are contained in, is stored very efficiently as body fat. Harvard University further claims that too much protein has the potential to raise the risk of kidney stones, and that a high-protein diet that contains lots of red meat and higher amounts of saturated fat might lead to a higher risk of heart disease and colon cancer. And if that's not enough to back one off from overemphasizing protein, it has also been clinically established that certain amino acids within protein have been shown to nourish cancer cells. So, Too much protein is not a good thing. Mentzer had already reached the same conclusion through reasoning and observation alone. A calorie is a calorie, and why that's not simplistic. The most frequent attack on Mentzer's nutrition philosophy comes from those who insist that not all calories are equal. They say you can't compare 3,500 calories of broccoli with 3,500 calories of jelly beans. But this critique confuses composition with measurement. A calorie is not a nutrient. It's a unit of energy, the amount of heat required to raise 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Saying a calorie isn't a calorie is like saying an inch isn't an inch or a pound isn't a pound. To reject the unit because you dislike what's being measured is to abandon the very concept of measurement. Two foods can differ vastly in vitamins, fiber, or micronutrients, but their energy content remains measurable. And in terms of weight regulation, that measurement counts. Saying calories don't count is like saying inches don't count when building a house. Or like saying 100 pounds of rocks isn't the same as 100 pounds of steak. Their composition differs, but 100 pounds is still 100 pounds. Mentzer understood this intuitively.
Foods like, let's say, mayonnaise and the cakes, are those the type of foods that will cover up the muscle?
No.
That's
a common misconception. Again, it's all calorie control. Even if you were eating below your required or maintenance level of calories every day, let's say you're eating 500 calories below your maintenance level, you could eat that. All those calories could be comprised literally of table sugar and mayonnaise, and you still lose fat. There is no really one single food or group of foods that could be called fattening. It's your overall calorie intake that determines how fat you'll be.
So I can still go on late night Pop-Tart rampages, is that what you're saying?
As long as they're under control.
Again, he wasn't recommending a sugar-only diet. He was isolating the law of energy balance from the noise of diet mythology. Once calories are equalized, composition affects health, not thermodynamics. The Endocrine Review's in 2017 conclusion summarized it perfectly, quote, "Calories derived from different dietary constituents do not differ significantly in their inherent capacity to promote weight gain or loss, so long as total calorie intake is held constant." Close quote. In other words, a calorie is a calorie, not because all foods are equal, but because physics is impartial. Mentzer's philosophy and practice. When Mentzer declared that carbohydrates were not the enemy, he wasn't preaching indulgence, he was preaching reason. He didn't advocate junk food diets, he advocated balanced, measured eating, grounded in logic and physiology. His own pre-contest nutrition was proof.
Before the Olympia, I was eating almost 80 and 90% carbohydrates. I know the majority of my fellow Mr. Olympia competitors woke up every morning during their training period, grumpy bastards, because all they had to look forward to was tuna fish and water. Anybody who goes to bed hungry and wakes up to tuna fish and water is going to be grumpy. But I woke up in the morning always looking forward to breakfast because I had bran muffins, oftentimes cake and cookies, fruits and vegetables, really. I ate a wide assortment of carbohydrates. Often I would eat just carrot cake for breakfast and coffee because I knew I needed that sugar for the workout. But I didn't do it recklessly. I knew what my daily maintenance needed calories was. And as long as I stayed below that every day, I kept a daily record of my calorie intake. I could eat that cake with impunity and not get fat. I was getting ripped, as a matter of fact. I was eating ice cream at least 4 days a week before the Mr. Olympia contest. Again, not recklessly. I knew that I had to get under 2,500 calories a day. I was averaging about 1,800. So I was burning about 700 calories a day of fat. And I was literally getting cut up before my very eyes. Every day I'd wake up and I would see more definition. And the night before I just had an ice cream cone. I mean, it's ridiculous eating nothing but protein or tuna fish and water to get cut up. Not only is it not healthy and no fun, it's just ridiculous.
The result spoke for itself. His combination of rational caloric control and carbohydrate-rich fueling produced one of the most aesthetic physiques of the era without the starvation and misery that defined his peers. Rational nutrition for the rational bodybuilder. In the end, Mentzer's teaching on carbohydrates wasn't merely nutritional, it was philosophical. It was about reality, logic, and causality. Energy must come from somewhere. Muscles must be fueled. The mind must be nourished. And the laws of thermodynamics apply whether we acknowledge them or not. So when the modern diet wars rage, keto versus vegan, low-carb versus high-carb, Mentzer's voice still cuts through with the clarity of first principles.
Nutrition is really so simple. All you need to do is eat a simple, well-balanced diet, which is really nothing more than basic food groups. This may seem oversimplistic, but this is the truth of the matter. Fruits, vegetables, cereals, and grains, dairy products, and meat. You get 2 portions every day of each one of those, then you will be getting a well-balanced diet. Even simpler, I often say, eat a little bit of everything, but not too much of anything, and you'll be getting a well-balanced diet. Diet is really very simple. Complicating the matter and confusing it by reading all of these crazy articles you read in Iron Man and Muscle Fitness are designed to sell you more products. By confusing you and muddling the issue, they divest you of your hard-earned dollars much easier. It's really very simple. Eat an adequate, well-balanced diet, train as hard as you can, and pray occasionally, and you will perhaps someday be a Mr. Olympia. Just the right ass. A lot of nutrition seems to be, to me, splitting hairs. People get so involved in their nutrition, which is okay. I mean, I'm not judging that. But it's a whole hell of a lot simpler just to, again, eat a little bit of everything and not too much of anything, train hard. And don't split hairs, unless you get off on it. It's up to you.
That's not just nutrition advice, it's epistemology. Define your terms, test your conclusions, and act according to reality. Carbohydrates are not the enemy. They are the body's preferred energy source, the mind's primary fuel, and the lifeblood of muscular performance. Half a century after Mentzer first said it, modern endocrinology, nutrition, and physics all agree. A calorie is a calorie. A carbohydrate is a carbohydrate. And reason, not dogma, is the foundation of true strength.